initially I'd like to jump in to one of their Group B rivals, please, Brad. It is, of course, Gareth Southgate's England at 1-3 odds on with Cobra Bet to win that group. But I suspect this isn't going to be straightforward. Let's talk the England squad, because as you and I chat right now, just a few days away from the tournament, there's still a lot of hype, a lot of question marks about who will or won't make the cut. And I'm talking now about names like Trent Alexander-Arnold of your old club, Liverpool. I'm talking about Leicester's James Maddison. I'm talking about the Manchester United duo, Marcus Rashford and Harry Maguire. Of those names and others, who would you be selecting and who would you be leaving at home if you were Gareth Southgate?
Well, I think the goalkeeping position is quite set. Well, I mean, although some would maybe bring Henderson in, but I think the three, Pickford, Ramsdale, and Pope, are for the most part set. I was doing this. I was going over this the other day because there's so many different. There's so many good players in England, and people can pick the bones out of it all that they want. But this is who I think Kyle Walker, if he's fit, which I believe he will be, has to be out on right back. Mm-hmm. With Chilwell being injured, and I'm doing this based on him not being there. Shaw out on the left. I would include Trippier then, because Trippier can bring his experience and play on the right or left. And then I think with Reece James's injury, I'd bring Trent into the squad. I have Stones, Maguire, Gahey, Tomori, and there's obviously one more, and I'm not having my. I'm trying to see where I put it down but I'll get back to the next. I have one more center back. You'll throw a name out at me, I know.
Well, for example, I'm intrigued. So you certainly, despite his, what I'm going to describe as a torrid season, you would include Harry Maguire?
I would. I might not start him, but I would include him. Mm-hmm. I think you can. You could bring in other players, but one thing that Gareth Southgate normally doesn't do is bring in new players towards the end and really close to a tournament. Harry has taken a lot of abuse. There's no doubt about it. But I think in and around the squad, from what I'm hearing, he's quite a popular figure. So yeah, I think I would include him in the overall squad. Yes.
Brad, I don't want to dwell too much, but so you're saying yes, Maguire, yes, Trent. In the midfield, a key name potentially, and an absolute sniper with a set piece, just like another player you mentioned, Kieran Trippier. But in the midfield is Leicester's James Maddison. His club spent the first 2 months of the season struggling. Is he a yes or a no?
He's the yes for me. I think his form dictates that. I like the center back I was forgetting was Eric Dyer. I would bring him in. I know he made a mistake on the weekend against Liverpool, but I think he's had a really solid season. And I also think with him missing out on the Euros, it'll give him a little added impetus to do very well for England in the World Cup.
Up front, a fit, lean, hungry, aggressive, and definitely focused Marcus Rashford is a deadly threat. And out of sorts, listless Marcus Rashford is hopeless. He started the season very well. He looks like the player that we know and love. I suspect there's probably not a lot of doubt, but he'll be on the plane for you?
He's on the plane, yeah. I think the starting striker would be Harry Kane, of course. Yes. And I think Rashford will be there. I think I would put Abraham, and then I would bring Wilson. Those would be the four. Now Rashford, I would bring because he can also play with a second striker if you need to change formations. He can also play on a wing if you need him to, especially on the left side to come in onto his right foot. And Marcus Rashford he understands big game big game moments, and I think I don't even really think there would be a question except for fitness. That's in my mind with bringing Rashford or not.
To be honest, Brad, you've already given us one fascinating insight above and beyond any other, because the name that jumped out at me there was Callum Wilson, who has had numerous injury problems. Again, when he gets a run of games and his confidence is high, he's a wonderful footballer, and he's a massive favourite there at St James's Park. And the other name to throw in, who I presume you're going to leave out, is Brentford striker Ivan Toney, who's done so well.
Yeah, he's done incredibly well. And it was actually, when I was doing my list, it was, this might surprise you a little bit, it was between Tammy Abraham and Ivan Toney. I just think Wilson will be incredibly happy being in the squad, and he'll be incredibly a different perspective from someone coming off the bench, and a different player coming off the bench. If you need someone to really run in between in defenders and will work tirelessly up front, Wilson's that guy. I'm not saying that Toney wouldn't do a good job, but I think he'd be a little bit more similar to adding Abraham. And I think with Abraham playing abroad now and having a little bit more of an international feel, I think he's an inclusion that I would make.
Brad, just remind us, because across, am I right in saying 82 caps for the USA, a career spanning 13 years at international level? How many World Cup tournaments?
3.
Exactly.
3 World Cups and 2 Olympics.
Whether or not you're on the periphery, or whether or not you are in the starting 11, surely the sense of achievement and a sense of satisfaction and excitement when you see your name on that. How does that even come? Do you get a letter? Do you get a fax? Do you get an email? Do you get a telephone call? How do you know when the moment comes that you're included and that you're in? Thank goodness.
Well, with the US and the managers I had, it was all by either personal meeting or phone call. Gareth, I know Gareth a little bit. I mean, he's a very personable individual with his players. I would imagine their personal meetings, or either a Zoom call or at the very least a phone call. I don't think it would be an email or a written letter only when you're making such a prestigious event or tournament. So in my experiences, it was always in face or a phone call.
Somebody like yourself who's been to the very, very top of the tree and stayed there for such a long period, you probably didn't deal with so much disappointment. You had a lot to celebrate, but just talk me through the range of emotions and the sort of the gut feeling, the moment that you get that face-to-face meeting, you get that telephone call, you get the good news. What exactly is can you sum up in a sentence, what are the emotions that surge through you, that course through your veins when you know, once again, you, Brad Friedel, are packing your bags for a World Cup?
It's an interesting one, because you go through a couple of years of qualifying for an event, and when you're getting called into the qualifying matches, it doesn't seem like a World Cup. You know, you're going in, you know they're important matches, you know what's at stake, but you could be left out of the next squad. You could be injured. You don't know. You go in for such a short time with your head coach, and then you're out again, and you feel part of the setup, but you go back to your club team where your home is, where your family is. And when you all of a sudden get the call that you're part of this squad, and this World Cup's a little different, because normally you'd go away for 3 to 4 weeks as a group before the tournament starts. This is 7 or 8 days, so it's a little bit different. But you immediately get this an initial feeling of accomplishment, and then you soon get a feeling that you've accomplished nothing because the tournament's going to start, and then the pressure starts to mount a little bit. I would say this is that pressure playing for the United States is completely different than pressure playing for England, in the sense that as soon as the squad is, well, I mean, people are criticizing the squad before it's even being announced in England. In the US, we have a little bit of that. But not as much scrutiny. So I always found more pressure playing in the Premier League, especially as a goalkeeper, than when you went in with the national team, which is a great thing. I think that's one of the reasons why we had success with the national team. because you can go in, you have a really good unit, a really good camaraderie, and you can just go play your football. The England players are under an incredible amount of scrutiny from the fans, from the media, from social media now. So I would imagine they get this sense, you find out you're in the squad and it's this meteoric rise of adrenaline, and then you get called in and you go into camp, and then realization hits that you have to win, and the pressure starts to mount.